The survivors-like subgenre has been doing numbers recently. Puns. And most of them fall into one of two categories. Either they're a total clone, almost identical to the original, so close in look, feel and scope that you might as well play the original, or at the other end of the scale, they try to do something so vastly different that it barely even qualifies as that type of game anymore. Because of that, I almost wrote off Jotunnslayer right out of the gate, despite having a cool Viking theme. And I'm glad I didn't, because I think it adds a few nice touches without forgetting what makes this type of game fun. Hey everybody, my name's Paul, I'm the Lost Scot, and here are 5 reasons to play Jotunnslayer Hordes of Hel. Before we start, I just want to remind you that I almost exclusively cover indie games, both here on YouTube and over on Twitch, for now. So if you haven't already followed me there, I'll put a link to my channel in the description. But while we're here, please think about hitting that subscribe button like a god of fertility coming after a hot mortal. Let's get to the game. Actually, hold up a second. I know this probably isn't the best way to start a completely new video format for me, but I have to get this off my chest. What happened to the term bullet heavy, or horde survivor? I think that's a way better genre name for games like this. I hate any genre or subgenre that uses another game to describe it, because people might not know the actual game that it's mentioning. I made a whole video about this years ago. Okay, rant over. I'm good. Let's go. Number 1. The characters all play differently. At the time I'm writing this, there are 4 characters you can choose from. Berserker, Revenant, Seeress and Flame Sister. The Berserker and Flame Sister both attack at close range, but the Flame Sister uses magic and can't take as much punishment. The Revenant is a bow user and the Seeress is a mage, and each one feels nicely different to play. There's a very obvious difference between running into the fight with a Berserker compared to running away from it with characters like the Revenant and Seeress. The only one I don't get on very well with is the Flame Sister, but that could be down to RNG or maybe just an incompatible playstyle. That's all subjective though, so your mileage may vary. Now obviously it's the abilities you collect along the way that'll determine how your run goes. But those class abilities are quite varied from character to character. And while we're on the subject, number 2, there's a good range of abilities, and some minor synergies. I really like the way the Jotunnslayer abilities are themed. When you level up, a couple of gods appear to offer abilities, and you have to choose between them. This is where you first learn about the themes. Abilities from Thor, as you'd expect, revolve around lightning, or Mjolnir. Nope. His hammer.
Perfect.
Abilities from Loki can be appropriately tricksy, where the effect could be powerful but has a chance of backfiring. These are the most interesting by far, but also the most impractical to actually use. Unless you're trying to manually increase the difficulty, is the risk of making a mob more powerful worth a slight increase in damage? That's always going to be hard to say. My favourite synergy in Jotunnslayer is when I get Thor's chain lightning on attack and combine that with the Seeress's attack wisps, which hit at random all over the screen. I should really try and look for s'more, but the second I see that chain lightning option, I'm going to take it every time. Kind of annoyingly, the day I finished writing this script, they dropped a new god who has a bunch of water-based abilities. So that's cool, I guess. Maybe I'll stick some footage of his watery bits if I get the chance.
Oh my.
Number 3. The quest mechanic adds some flexibility. At certain points during the run, you're given a quest to complete. They come in a couple of difficulties, with rewards that scale along with them. The quests are pretty standard: go here, kill this, or go here, activate that, although there's some where you just need to survive a hostile environment. Completing them is optional, and you can complete a run without doing any, but for actual metagame progress, and to spawn the boss at the end of the level, you need to do them. By itself, that wouldn't be too interesting. But because you get to choose how difficult you want it to be, it can add a little bit extra spice in a run that might otherwise be too easy. There are also some cool mini-bosses who show up in these quests. They take a lot more punishment and have more complex abilities, and they're actually a great primer for what the main boss has in store for you at the end of the level. That's a great piece of game design there, straight out of Nintendo's book. My only complaint with this is that there's some things I wish would happen without me having to run across the map to do it. The curses, for example, will slow you down or make you take damage or whatever, but it doesn't kick in until you go and trigger it. Likewise, the final boss on each level doesn't spawn instantly, and you need to go to a certain point to start the fight. Sometimes I forget these things, and then I run out of time while I'm waiting for something to start. That's just me. Number 4, the maps have destructible scenery. I know this is pretty trivial, but I love destructible scenery. Around each level, there are structures or posts or whatever, and you will destroy them, even if you're not trying. Some of the missions spawn portals, and those collapse when you're done with them. It doesn't affect gameplay in any way, although wouldn't it be cool if you could use the rubble to block enemies from coming at you? But it adds to the epic feel of your character's power. And even better than that, the bits and pieces left behind when these things crumble last for the entire level. I really like when I come back to an area and see evidence that I wrecked some stuff there. Number 5, you can take direct control. This could be the most important of these points, and probably the one feature that makes Jotunnslayer different from other games of its type. There's an option to turn on direct manual controls, so instead of abilities triggering automatically and the player only controlling movement, you can both aim and choose when to activate each one. It means the game becomes a twin-stick arena shooter. Now okay, I know that means we're not really in Horde Survivor territory anymore. It's something so vastly different that it barely even qualifies as that type of game anymore. But it's fun, and since it's entirely optional, it means if you don't want it, then you don't need to use it. A word of warning though, although it might feel like a twin stick, your abilities trigger a little too slowly to hold on to certain abilities for the perfect moment. When the screen fills up with enemies, it becomes a lot to manage, although maybe that's just my old man brain letting me down again. All of that said, no game is perfect, so I also have a couple of things that might put you off Jotunnslayer too. Number 1, you buy character upgrade points using in-game gold. When you're completing quests or opening chests, accidental poetry, you earn gold. That gold only has one function, to buy skill points, which you then have to trade for actual skill upgrades. And I don't understand why. Why have that middle step? Why not just buy the upgrades with the gold? There are no microtransactions in Jotunnslayer as I'm recording, but this system just feels like it's ripe for being turned into microtransaction central. Unfortunately, I can't edit this video after it's up, but if I find out they've added MTs after the launch, then I'll update the description, add a comment, and see if I can put a card up or something. Number 2, the maps are pretty small. When your character build-up is suboptimal, whether that's through bad choices or just not getting any decent options, runs can be pretty hard sometimes. That means you end up spending a lot of time on a single map. Now, while I said earlier that the game looks good and that I like destructible scenery, you can run from one corner of the map to another in just a few seconds. And because you run all the time in Horde Survivor games, this happens a lot. So you end up seeing every corner of each map multiple times in a single run. That might not be a big deal if you can plough through each level easily, but I found myself wishing the maps were a bit bigger. All that said, after the first level, the other maps add some extra hazards and block some routes, so you're not always running in a straight line. But I feel like this limited size could drive a lot of people, myself included, a little crazy pretty quickly. Number 3, there's not much enemy variety. While the enemy types are all appropriate for the Viking theme, each level only has a handful of enemies that'll spawn. I don't know if this is me, maybe just misunderstanding a fairly trivial part of the Horde Survivor genre, but I kept wanting to see some fresh enemies. There's a decent variety of attack patterns though. Some chase you down, some fire from a distance, some explode for AoE damage. Definitely no complaints there, just those repeated models. Number 4, why not include more gods? I don't know much about Viking pantheons, but I do know that they had a ton of different gods in much the same way that the Greeks and Romans did. So why does Jotunnslayer only include a handful? Full disclosure, since I started writing this script, they have added a new god in one of the updates, as I mentioned, so it's possible they have more planned for the future. And I absolutely understand that creating themed abilities for each one must be a really time-consuming job, so they have my sympathy. But I definitely love to see them find a way of bringing a lot more Norse gods into the game. I always like to take a look at the accessibility options that games provide, but Jotunnslayer Hordes of Hel doesn't really have any. You can redefine all of the controls, which is great for people with physical conditions that require special controllers. You can move with keyboard controls, but there's no gameplay tweaks other than the manual option I mentioned earlier. There's no colorblind or hearing impaired options either. Jotunnslayer is a solid entry into the Horde Survivor genre and definitely worth a look, even if you're not usually into Vikings. If you are into Vikings, then this should be a no-brainer. Bear in mind, it's still in early access, so obviously anything I've mentioned here could change as development continues, if development continues at all. But assuming they don't mess it up, I can see this being a real standout down the line. And if you think this video stands out, then please think about subscribing so you don't miss my new stuff. And if you got this far, then there must be something you like, right? This is a new format for me, so it'd be nice to know if this works better than the old first looks. So please hit the like button and maybe leave a comment to let me know how I'm doing. And if you didn't like it, then a comment would let me know what I might be doing wrong. Once again, I stream indie games like this on Twitch, and I'll have a new 5 Reasons video up as soon as I can. I'm Lost Scott, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.